Hi everyone, this is day 7, sculpting a commission fashion doll. And there's a couple of things that we're going to cover with this fashion doll. And the first thing that I want to show you is that I've already started her jacket. And there's some changes that I am going to make with it. But I want to show you a technique that I've been doing for quite a while, and I really like doing it. Because I had to attach her arm and cook it, and then of course I had to make the jacket first, and then I made her arm, and then I cooked it, and then I put the jacket over her arm, and then I attached her shoulder. I couldn't really show that on camera, but I'm going to be able to give you an idea of how I do it on this side. When I want to do a pattern for a doll that the clothing is going to be fabric, I discovered this a long time ago, and it's wire mesh for sculptures. Now they have all different kinds of grades. This is a fine, it's aluminum. I use it for to make like a dress form, but you can also use this as a base for your armature. But we're not going to get into the armature. I'm going to strictly talk about the form that I made for her jacket to get the pattern that I needed. When you purchase this, it comes either in a roll or it will come in a square. Now I bought mine in the, I believe it was Hobby Lobby, but I think most of the craft stores carry it. It's usually around the, I believe it's the glues in that, the plaster, right around in that area. This one comes in the squares, and they don't have too much of a variety. If you go online, it's by Amaco, who puts it out. Now there might be other different brands out there, I don't know, but I've always I found the one with Amaco, and that's just the one that I've just stuck with, because I can just go to my craft store and just pick it up. But I would like to try some of their the other ones that they have, as far as they have different colors. They have one that sparkles and whatever. So I'm thinking that there's a possibility that there's some things that you could really do with this wire. It won't rust on your doll. That is the one thing that I really like about it. And it's really flexible. But again, this is the, I would say, the much weaker one. Okay, I just take a piece. Now, we'll just pretend like this jacket wouldn't be on her, but I would do the whole torso with this. And what I do is, because it's going to be a jacket, it's going to be, the cut is going to be in the center of her torso. So I roughly lay it on there because I have to think of the neckline that I'm going to have. So as I lay my wire mesh on my doll, and I'm only going to do a side, which I have to pay attention to my shoulders. So I would bring that up. And then what I would do is I would just press it up against my doll. Now it's a little bit harder for me to really get a nice impression of the torso with just doing a half and having the jacket on. but you're going to get the idea. So I would really press that on the doll so that it is really conformed to her body. Okay, and then roughly what I would do is I would just pull the whole thing off. So the whole wire form would be her whole torso in one piece. And then I would pull it off, and now I have what would be the starting of my pattern to make for her jacket. The second thing that I found to do is that paper towels really work good with making a pattern like this. Just make sure that you get a paper towel that's not going to like the real cheap ones, to where they get wet and then they just like crumble off. What I do is I'll wet my paper towel just a little bit, and I will lay it over my form. Now you don't have to do this. You can just go ahead and you can just take your wire and you can cut it to your pattern pieces, and then you can lay out your pieces and flatten it out and make your pattern that way. I think that's more for people that are really familiar with pattern making and sewing. If you're not, then I would recommend trying the paper towel. When you wet the paper towel and you lay it on it, let it dry, and then you'll just be able to peel that off, and then you have your pattern. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, I'm going to show you how I attach, or how I start the arm. I did shave this down a little bit, and I might even shave a little bit more off on the back, but I'm not really too concerned with it right now because I'm basically going to show you how I would attach this. Now, remember, my torso inside has a core of the epoxy sculpt. Then I have my clay around it. So when I was putting my clay on there, I made a deep enough hole for my arm, the shoulder of my arm to go into, which I would go right into that hole. Now sometimes I've even had to just dig that out just a little bit, because when you cook it, sometimes your clay will move a little bit, or close it up a little bit. But see how nice that fits in? Now then, this is the part that you have to be really careful with. Once I put the epoxy sculpt inside the arm to hold it, I want to make sure that I have my arm in the position that I want it in, because if I decide that I want to move that shoulder, I'm not going to be able to do it once I put that epoxy in it. So what I'm going to do with my arm today is that I'm not going to attach it to the shoulder just yet. I'm going to make the hand and the arm, and then I'm going to cook this piece, and then I'm going to attach it to the shoulder. Okay, now there's something here that I would like to share with you, and there might be many of you that already know this. But I had two problems with the arm and the hand. And if I'm thinking, it might have been three problems. But anyways, I'm going to cover all of them for many of you that may be just starting out. When you measure the arm, okay, I'm just going to roughly do it with my fingers, but your elbows will always be at the waist. Now these are guidelines because everybody is different. I want to measure the top of the shoulder to the elbow, okay? And I would roughly measure it from the elbow down to the knuckles of your hand. So in other words, what I'm saying is that this part of the arm is going to be the same as here, the bottom of the arm, from the elbow to the knuckles of the hand. Now that was something that I was not aware of, and I never could figure out why that when I would measure from the shoulder to the elbow to the wrist. It wasn't the correct way. What that did was it made my arm look like it was too short. So then to compensate that, what I would do was I was working with the hand and making the hand longer. And then it looked like my hand was too big. When I realized what I was doing wrong, that really cleared that area up for myself. Okay, now the other thing that I wanted to share with you is that when we do the hand, okay, now this part right here, okay, when I measure from the shoulder to the elbow and then elbow to the knuckles, okay, my wrist is going to be back, and then the rest of my hand is going to be right in here. So don't have any wires going down in that hand, and I really don't want anything in this area here, because if I have my wire connected here coming down, it would be hard for me to bend it. So I'm just going to leave that alone. Now I'm going to show you a way that when I do the hands, I'm going to tie it into the arm here. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to get my clay ready, and then we're going to start doing the, I believe I'm going to put the clay around the arm first, and then we're going to build the hand. So I'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, everyone, I have my clay ready, and I wanted to mention this because I forgot to mention it, is that when you're doing your pattern on that Wireform or anything, remember to allow for your seam allowance. I did forget to mention that. Okay, now what I do is I always apply my clay on in layers. I don't ever take a big ball of clay and apply it to my doll, because I find that for myself only, that the more clay that I put on the doll, I have a tendency to have a lot more trapped air in it. So I found that it works much better for me if I just put it through my pasta machine, and you don't have to have a pasta machine. You can just roll it out yourself. But I tried to have the same thickness. Okay, now what I would do is my seam, I am going to have it come from the inside of the arm. So I would take my clay, and as I apply it to my core, I am going to make sure that I press this completely against my epoxy, because that's what will cause you to have trapped air, and when you cook it, it'll crack. Okay, now let me get my knife here. You don't have to be exact on this. I just try to keep my seam onto the inside of the arm, but you know, we're going to smooth it out anyway, so You can really put the seam anywhere you want. Okay, going to just smooth this out. And I'm just going to roughly show you how I start the arm. And then I will go off camera and I will sculpt in more of the details. Okay. And then I'll take another layer. And I'm going to do the same thing. I just want to really make sure that that is really pressed up against the epoxy. Okay, and this little piece here, I don't even want to worry about the hand right now. Okay, now that would be my first layer of clay. And I just go over it, and I've gotten so that I can actually feel it now, is that I can actually go over it again, and I can feel if I do have any trapped air in there, which I don't. But after a while, when you do it, you'll start doing things like that to where you might not see it, but you'll feel it. Okay, that would be the beginning of how I would start my arm. And then I would go and I would put in another layer. Let me cut just a little bit off here. Oh, and the other thing that I was going to mention too is that normally I work on a piece of glass, and because for some reason between the glass and my clay, it's too light on the camera, so I put a piece of parchment paper underneath it to maybe break the glare. But the one thing that I wanted to share with the parchment paper is that actually it's really a nice area to work on. I have to tape it down, but what it does is it really shows me if my table is I'm finding like little pieces of hair or dust or whatever, and it just, it just glides off. Where the glass, I like working on the glass, but I don't see the dust or the hair as much as I can with the parchment paper. Now I've had some people ask, what surfaces to use. Can you use wax paper? And I suggest not to use wax paper for this reason, is that as you're working with the wax paper, the wax can actually get into your raw clay and you not know it, a little piece of it, and then when you cook it, it melts into your polymer clay. And then when you go and you paint it, you can't figure out why your paint won't paint that little area where the wax got into your clay. Okay, so now here's the starting. And then in front of me I do have my reference. It's always good to have a reference because I find that if I'm just sitting here just sculpting, you'll have a tendency to sculpt a same pattern over and over and over, and you're not even noticing that you're doing something wrong. And just having the reference in front of you gives you that ability to change what you would automatically think to do. It's not like you have to copy it. It just, I don't know, I just find that it keeps me from repeating a same pattern that I have in me to that I would do. Okay, for the elbow, I just make a ball. Now the elbow, you want to remember that the elbow comes off of the bone here, not the top. I might have a little bit too much. And I just would work that in. Okay, that would be just the starting of it. And if I put it up to my doll, okay, my elbow is right at the waist, which is good. And this part here would need to come down a little bit. Make that more, a little bit flatter there. Okay, so I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to get my arm to where it looks like something, and then I'm going to show you another thing that I've learned with just sculpting the hand, and I'm going to share that with you today. So I will be back, you guys, and we'll do the hand. Okay, everybody, I'm going to try to explain to you the best that I can. The humidity here is really horrible, and my clay is just feeling tacky, and especially tacky. And doing the hands is not a very easy today. Okay, I'm going to explain to you what I've done. And this is when I take some more of my wire mesh, and I'm actually going to show you what I do is I take the mesh and I actually make it, I flatten it to make it for the this part of the hand. And what I do is I'll measure to where I'm pretty close, and what I want to measure is I only want to measure it to the knuckles and to the where the wrist starts coming up. So I'm going to roughly say about right like that. Okay, and then what I did is I just kind of give it a little indentation right there, just so that I know that that's about where the wrist is. Then I would just take my clay again. I do it in layers, and I would basically, and then sometimes I'll take the little ends of that wire and I'll just kind of like push them into the center a little bit. Okay, so I would take my clay and I'd roughly go around it and make sure that all that air is out. And I would put another one. And I would keep doing this until I had my thickness. And I wanted to share this with you guys because I know everybody's got questions, because I know I did. When I first started out, and I first started doing a hand, and I looked at it and I said, how thick do you make a hand? And I'll never forget it because I asked an artist at that time, how do you know how thick to make the hand? And the answer that they gave me was, I don't know. And I thought that that was kind of odd because I thought, well, you know, you're an artist, you're supposed to know. That was my thinking then. And I found out it was something that I needed to learn myself. So I just started studying references. And this is what I've learned with myself, because everybody's hands are different. I mean, my hands are like short. I got short fingers and don't have the long, slender hands like most women do have. And what I've noticed is that if it's just a guideline, is that I make the hand, and I mean the palm part, about as wide as the area in the lower part of the arm. Not, it either can go one way or the other way, because some people have real skinny wrist. I don't. I had broken my wrist, so I don't have a real slender wrist. But that's how I go by a guideline, just a guideline, okay? And then the palms, or the padding part here, that's going to be just a little bit bigger and that wider in that part. And again, that's going to depend on a person's hand, because they can have very little padding and they can have more boning than what I have. But again, it's just a guideline, and that really helped me out a lot. So here is the hand that I started, and this is the one that's going to go on my doll, and I just wanted to show you. Okay, now this part here, this is where my wire is right in the palm, like that. Okay, and then what I do is, whoops, I didn't have that on there. Okay, I take this okay, and I just want to compare it one more time with my other hand. Okay, I'm right on there. Okay. For the thumb has its own plane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some clay. I might have a little bit too much. And I'm going to place it right on there. Okay? Now remember, this is where my knuckles are. I don't have my fingers on there yet, because the way that I used to do it is pretty much, I think, like a lot of other people do it. They would take the clay, make a little pancake, and then slice your fingers and then start rolling them out. Well, I don't know. Sometimes that would work for me and sometimes not. And I said, you know what, I've got to find another way that's going to work better for me. So this is what I came up with. Okay, for the thumb, because it has its own plane, it is like a triangle. And I still have a little bit too much clay. Okay, it's like a triangle. And then kind of like a little half moon in there. Okay, and then I'm just gonna roughly show this to you. Now this would be her arm. Now her arm, it's going to, the way that I have it, I have the, trying to see how to explain this to you. Okay, this would be her wrist right in here. So you see, I'm going to be able to bend it real easy. Okay. If I had the epoxy and my wire down in it, I wouldn't be able to bend it. Okay. So what I would do, and I'm kind of jumping here because I wouldn't be doing this now. But this, here's the wrist right in here. This would be right at the wrist. And then I would cut this off. But you could, if you wanted to, you could take this wire and you could wrap it all around your whole arm and then press it really tight and then put your clay around it if you want. Because again, this is aluminum, it won't rust. So I'm not worried about the polymer clay being against the wire. Okay, so I would just go ahead, and for me, I would clip this off and then I would wrap it around like this. And actually I think, okay, maybe this one I'll show it a little bit better. Here's my wrist. And I want my wire to be right at that wrist. So then if I want to, see, and I mean I have really got good support there because when I'm pushing down, it's, you know, it's not like really mushy or real, it's not real easy to push down, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, now you see how I would be wrapping that all around, and then depending on your doll, okay, if you really feel like it needs more support, which I don't, my tool here, I want to get that wire down in there. You can put a little bit of epoxy in there, but I don't know, it is such a small area that, I mean, I guess depending on the size doll that you would be doing. But really between the epoxy, the wire, and the wire mesh, I really feel like I have a lot of support there in that hand. Plus, I also have the support that is connected here from the wire mesh to the palm of the hand. Okay, then what I would do, and I don't have a piece, but let me take this very quickly and I'm going to just run it through my pasta machine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here because the humidity is really bad today, and there's no point in sculpting it when it's like this. Okay, now then what I'm going to do is wrap this around it. But what I was going to say was I was going to upload what I've got here, and then wait for a cold front to come through. See, I would just wrap it around, again, making sure I don't have any trapped air. And I'm just going to break that off. And I wanted to show you today, but honestly, like I said, the humidity is just not allowing me to do it. When I do the hand, some people might think maybe it's not an easy way to do, but I don't do it the way everybody does it with the making the pancake and slicing the fingers and all that. I just found a little different way of visualizing things. And I mean, I still slice the fingers in that, but I don't go by the visual of cutting each individual finger. I focus on the roll. So in other words, when I'm starting out, I have my hand like this. This is where my knuckles are going to be. After I get this going and everything, then what I do is I will take more clay and I will work in a row across, not this way. Okay, so that's a little bit too much. So this is actually going to be this part of the finger and this part of the finger. Then I'm going to add another piece of clay the same way that I did this. But as I'm doing this, okay, I'm angling my clay down. So in other words, this area here is raised higher than this area here. Okay, I'm just roughly doing it. Now, for the tips of her fingers, I would do it like this. And again, angling it down just a little bit. Now, the reason why I do it this way is because I found that when I did it the other way, I never could get a hand to be right in the knuckle area. And I found that when I just reversed my way of thinking, that I now would get more of a knuckle, and I don't have to, the other way, when you make the pancake and then you take your fingers and then you pull it, you stretch it and everything, this area right in here always would get like real thin, or because the clay is so little there that it just doesn't take much to manipulate that clay to where it would stretch out and it wouldn't be shaped right. So now by doing it this other way, I already have this part in here and I don't have to take my fingers and really kind of like stretch down in this area. The only thing that I do is that when I would slice my fingers, Now this would be all smooth, my joints. Okay, but I'm just leaving that in there so that we can see that that's where the end of the fingers would be. So, see, this would be, I would have this all smooth. And the tips of the fingers, I always make them arch down more so than the center of the fingers. Okay, then I would go in I would go in there and cut. See, now I would go ahead and I would do the fingers. But like I said, I wouldn't have that, I would have that blended in there. But I just wanted to show you that part. Okay, now back to this one. Okay, this was the other thing that I had to learn with myself that I was always doing wrong. Is that, okay, as I'm putting my clay on my arm here, okay, what I want to show you is the radius, the bone right here, this area here, and I'm just going to sketch that in. Okay, this bone here, right along here, which is the radius, is a little bit longer than the ulna. And then your fingers, okay, this finger here, the knuckle, okay, actually comes down further, like the radius here comes down a little bit further than what the radius comes down. Okay, and then the rest of it is all up to you on detailing it. But just get your lines in. And then just remember that the thumb has its own plane. And then the tip of it comes out just a little bit. Okay, everybody? I have a lot of work to do here, but I wanted to show you how I wrap the wire into the hand, connect the hand to the arm. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wait for that cold front to please come through, get rid of this humidity, and I will start doing some detail work on my arm. And then the next tutorial, I will actually show you how I attach it with the epoxy in the shoulder. Okay, everybody, I hope that there's been some information here that has been helpful, and I'll see you next time. Everybody, thank you for viewing, and hope you got what it was that you might needed. See you then. Bye.